And no offense, it's like, I don't think late Roman antiquity is particularly subject expertise for Jimmy Buffett. So
I don't think so.
Well,
I figure
that's what you
academically.
think. Yeah.
Oh, you're making the argument today. Okay.
Oh, I think I am absolutely in a position to say that Jimmy Buffett sucks.
Well, you're on the right podcast to be saying that.
Wasting away again, away again. Wasting away again, away again. Wasting away again, and Margarita the bed. It's my own damn fault.
Welcome, everybody, to This Choreography, Wasting Away Again 2026. I'm Kyle.
I'm Tom. We have a guest this week.
Yes, this is our guest, Sam.
Hello.
Sam is a former professor of both of ours.
That's true.
Crucially, also a Canadian, which is important for this album.
Yes, this week we're discussing 1983's One Particular Harbour.
And I think most of you are out there saying, what does that have to do with Canada? Stay tuned, folks.
I'm also saying that, but okay.
Stay tuned, Sam.
Well, but before we get into it, let's really quick ask, hey, Sam, so we do this thing at the start of the podcast where you get to talk about music you've been listening to that's not written by Jimmy Buffett, if you have been. So what have you been listening to lately?
That's a very good question. I've kind of been all over the place. DJ Rum. I'm not sure if you're familiar with DJ Rum. Very cool, interesting stuff.
I thought we were going to have
kind
no
of-
mentions of rum this week, but we've already lost.
This is yeah, and frankly, it could be D Drum because I don't know how to pronounce it. But kind of cool, sort of Aphex Twinny, but also kind of drum and bass or drill and bassy stuff. Not super old. There's some newer stuff, pretty cool. I had to cleanse my palate after listening to Jimmy Buffett by listening to some very hard techno by Surgeon. But I've also been listening to sort of old Morrissey and the Smiths for reasons I'm still not entirely sure about, as well as just like a bunch of jazz and also hip hop and drum and bass. So it's kind of been all over the map.
I got really into the Queen is Dead for the first time last year, so I had a lot of fun with that. Kyle, what have you been listening to?
So I've been listening to a lot of like funk, R&B, even jazz, disco, all from that time period. Cheryl Lynn's debut album has been on the turntable this week in terms of 1983 albums, because I'm always listening to something from the same year as the album we do. I've been listening to Guardian of the Light by George Duke, which has one of my favorite funk songs on it, Reach Out, which I think would be my contender for if I had to listen to a single song on repeat for the rest of my life. That's the song I would be able to listen to the longest before I went crazy. Good little thought experiment. Tom, what have you been listening to?
Well, last week I talked about me and my partner getting each other records for Valentine's Day. Last week I'd mostly been listening to Close to the Edge by Yes, which she got me. This week I'd mostly been listening to What I Got Her, which was David Byrne's Who is the Sky, his latest album, done in collaboration with the Ghost Train Orchestra. I really like it. It's fun. I like David Byrne's solo work quite a bit. So
yeah, we've talked about it a bit on this podcast, and you've intrigued me to go listen to it because I only know him from Talking Heads.
It's good stuff. I really like this latest album. It's a little interesting, but I enjoy it.
I guess we should get into the context for this album. And I'll be honest with you guys, I wrote like a couple long paragraphs trying to square this album with the rest of Jimmy's career we've heard so far. There are some consistencies between the last couple albums and this one, but I essentially scrapped all that this morning when I realized, just forget all that. This album is Jimmy having a midlife crisis.
It sure is.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up, you sent a appearance he did on Letterman in the lead up to this record coming out.
Yeah.
And I think that interview sort of gives all the context that you really need. He feels like his records aren't selling that well. He's talking about drug and alcohol use like it's a touchy subject, I think partially because it's the 1980s and partially because it was a major factor in his separation from his wife.
Yeah, if I remember to link this in our video, I will, because really it does it better. Jimmy's own self-deprecating humor and testimony in his little interview. It's like 5 minutes long, the interview, and then it goes to the songs. It's better than anything I could really talk about. But yeah, Jimmy's separated from his wife. he went to Tahiti, and now he thinks he has like a new Key West-esque muse, but he doesn't. He does not.
Yeah, I do think that interview is demonstrative. There's not really that much else to say. Like he's kind of sad. Things are not going great.
So real quick, I'll just talk about the changes in the Coral Reefer band right now, because there's a couple big ones. So Harry Daly, his longtime bassist, he's gone. He's actually replaced by Timothy B. Schmidt of Poco and Eagles fame. Fingers is gone on this album. He takes a year off from being around Jimmy. And in his testimony, it's to learn how to not drink. And I think that gives us a little insight as to what Jimmy is doing this year.
I agree. It's interesting because there was at least one song on this album where I felt like, it really actually could have used Fingers into harmonica solo.
You've been higher on Fingers than I have, so I'm interested to see which one you think it is when we get there. The other changes
Can I just chime in quickly, though?
Sure.
I think what this album could have used is maybe more drugs and alcohol, but
I think so.
That's worked for him in the past. So replacing ML Benoit, who I have to issue an apology. I've been referring to ML Benoit as a man. Apparently, ML Benoit, Mary Lou Benoit, is a woman. I had no idea. Never seen a picture. But so I guess Jimmy had multiple women in his band at the time. Instrumentalist women, not just backup singers, too. So Sam Clayton of Little Feat replaces ML Benoit. And then, of course, the big addition is this is the first appearance of longtime Coral Reefer Robert Greenidge on the steel drums. So
he's entered the building, and he'll be in the building for the next until Jimmy's dead. So
yep. And then the other thing I want to mention that happens before this album is released is that Jimmy Buffett is sued by the estate of Richard Buckley for performing God's Own Drunk, unattributed to Lord Buckley.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about is a little weird because Jimmy on the live album specifically said before, like when he introduced the song, it's by Lord Buckley. So we don't know why there's this like big kerfuffle over rights to it. Like Jimmy's obviously in the wrong and he acknowledges that. Apparently it has to do with what I found from a Billboard article on it from 1983 is that the Buckley estate, Buckley's son, alleges that by attributing it to Buckley, Jimmy is actually making people think that Buckley swears in his monologue as much as Jimmy does. And therein lies the issue.
That's the concern?
Yeah, he cites immorality and profanity. So, I mean, it's weird. We don't actually know how the case is settled. It sort of just fizzles out, and then a number of years later, he starts playing the song again.
Really quick, you skipped over something that I think is a really important note on personnel, actually, which is that last album, Jimmy ended his relationship with producer since Changes in Latitudes, Changes in Attitudes, Norbert Putnam. He's gone, and you might ask, what producer has replaced him? And that producer is Jimmy himself and Michael Utley.
Yes,
which I think explains a lot about this album.
Yes, unfortunately for Mike Utley, because we had good things to say about Mike Utley's musical direction on the last album.
Well, I think music direction and production are different skill sets.
This is true. So, in terms of album performance, it's a big drop-off from the last couple albums. The last two albums hit number 30 and 31 on the Billboard. This one hits number 59 on the Billboard. It does have two minor adult contemporary hits, one particular Harbour at number 22, and his cover Brown Eyed Girl at number 13. There is one specific song internationally that gets quite high. And the reason, Sam, you were here is because I want to know what's going on in Canada in 1983 that one particular Harbour goes to number 4 on their adult contemporary chart.
Let's see. I'm not sure I have a ton of insights into Canada in 1983.
So just a little context. It's his fourth top 10 there after Margaritaville, which hit number 1, Changes in Attitude, which hit number 6, and Volcano, which was his second number 1. So you have a lot of explaining to do for your country.
Well, I think the first thing to note is that we have free and universal healthcare. And so I think with that comes a little bit more risk taking because we simply know that we will be taken care of if we were, for instance, to listen to an entire Jimmy Buffett album.
This is good
The
content.
psychological impact, that would be extreme. But, we have this safety net that allows us to I think, maybe do things that other people wouldn't. Now, my question is there any Canadian content on the album?
I wouldn't think so. So
because, often things will go, the charts in Canada will often look different because we have a thing called CanCon, Canadian Content Regulations, which, I'm not sure what they were in the 70s and 80s, but something like whatever it is, 40% of all music has to be Canadian because obviously we live beside the cultural behemoth that is the Jimmy Buffett producing United States. So
Right.
obviously producing a lot of high culture that we have to compete with. Canadian content does skew our charts, and often you'll see things that are weird when you compare them to the United States. Like, the Tragically Hip, I think, is probably the epitome of this, right? A band that
right.
is top one most beloved band in Canada. Nobody in the United States has even heard of them. So sometimes these weird things can be explained by the fact that Jimmy Buffett hired a Canadian parrot or whatever, and that allowed it to be counted as a Canadian record for some weird reason. But I guess that is not the case here.
From what I can tell, it looks like CanCon became a policy from the Broadcasting Act in the 1st of February 1991. So I'm guessing that this is not what's happened here, but it might explain why like the cultural imperialism is still going strong at this point in 1983.
Right. See,
probably a part of it.
I think I was more thinking about it the fact that I wanted to know if farther north, because we know Jimmy has these like weird influences on, like, he's big in Portland, Oregon, for literally no reason at this time. I just wanted to know whether it was like the farther north and the harsher a winter you get, whether that means like you're more likely to listen to a Jimmy Buffett album because they're so warm and about the tropics. We've noticed this pattern that Jimmy Buffett albums that release in the winter do better.
Usually. I do think that it's a little bit irrelevant maybe for this album because I don't think this album is very warm at all.
Well, it also came out in September. It didn't come out in the winter. Although the last two did, and they, middling at best.
But so. September is winter in Canada, though, right? So,
yeah.
What months aren't winter in Canada?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So this album opens with a cover of Rodney Crowell's Stars in the Water. And immediately for me, I'm kind of struck by the fact that all of the production on this album just sounds like a cacophonous mess.
Yeah, so this is what I noticed. It's a lot of people are struggling with this in the early 80s, especially people that are geared towards adult contemporary like Jimmy Buffett. There's this really big meteoric event that happens in November 1982 that completely flips the entire pop world on its head, and that's the release of Thriller, the biggest album of all time, because music production goes from like mellow and smooth that, at least in the LA scene, is geared mostly by the sound of like the late stage Laurel Canyon, your Eagles, your Jackson Brown, your Carole King, sort of mellow, sort of little folk, little country, mostly soft rock, into really synth heavy, a lot of R&B, really hard backbeats. And I like to say it moves from being smooth production to slick production is what happens with that shift in adult contemporary. And I can hear Jimmy changing between the last album to this album from smooth to slick.
It doesn't feel slick to me though. It feels like it feels like you threw all the instruments in a trash.
I'm saying that in a vacuum, as in like if you're doing it good, it goes from smooth to slick. But yeah, this is not doing it good at all.
A big part of that, I think, is again the production on this thing is just kind of amateurish. Unfortunately,
the production is garbage, which sucks because Stars in the Water is a great song. Rodney Crowell's version is one of my favorites. And this is a song that he likes too, because just like Steamer on the last album, he constantly refers to this being a song that he wishes he had written because he adores it so much.
That's kind of sad though.
A little bit, but like occasionally Jimmy will like have like a cover that he sees something in and he just kind of embodies it really strongly.
To be fair, Jimmy's in a very sad period of his life right now.
I think a lot of this album can be summed up as sad, but there's another one that's very good, which is, we also mentioned earlier, God's Own Drunk, which is a performance of a comedic bit by Lord Buckley, which is mostly like a spoken monologue about being a teetotaler who watches a whiskey still and gets drunk with a bear. And Jimmy is great at that. He's fantastic. It's like he was built in a lab to do that performance. But this one, I don't think he nails it. I don't think he nails this cover.
I don't think he does. And look, the most positive thing I have to say about the arrangement of this is there's no steel drums on it, and that's going to be a big problem on the rest of the album. So
I I think this is one of the better recordings on the album, and
Definitely.
I think that's grim. I think that's grim. Sam, what did you think about this recording of
Well,
Stars
I mean,
in the
I
Water?
will echo. I mean, it is striking. So I was absolutely struck by the production. I was struck. I mean, at the beginning, I was like, maybe there is a little bit of hope. Song 1, first 15 seconds, like, okay. But I completely agree that it does kind of descend into, and I'm here just talking about the production. The actual music is also bad, but the production is not particularly good. I will also say that the lack of steel drums is a strong point, because that was definitely an issue for me going forward. But at least in the recording that I had, like the levels were all over the place. It did sound to me like it was recorded in a hallway or something.
Yeah.
Like it just did not sound good.
Yeah,
And,
this
some of
was
the there's
recorded
some better
at some of the
production
most
later on.
forefront studios in the United States at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think they worked hard to make it sound bad, and they succeeded in that.
Yeah, I feel like Jimmy's voice just kind of gets lost in the mix.
Yeah.
But it also it makes me think about the Metallica album Saint Anger that has these like legendarily bad snare sounds on the drums.
Yeah.
That apparently like are like that on purpose because Lars Ulrich really liked the sound of it.
Well, Lars
like,
also sucks. That is my other theory.
Oh, yeah.
About,
I'm not,
but
I'm not a big Metallica guy. I don't really like most of their music, but like it makes me think about like I think a lot of this is like they were aiming for these sounds and then they were like, awesome, we got it. Hit send, and it's like, don't hit send on that one. Bring it back.
Well, the snare in metal is, if you've ever seen like a metal show, it does kind of sound like that snare, but the reason it does is because they need to hear it. And it's the only thing that cuts through. And it's also why I'm partially deaf, right? So like that snare is like drilling an ice pick into your ear. But it does serve a purpose when it's heavy metal. Here, I think you're right. There's like a weird kind of mix of just kind of failed, but potentially intentional production techniques. I don't know what they were going for. Like this is the question I had listening not just to the first song but the entire album. When they wrapped that up and then they listened to it in the studio before they pressed it, were they like, "Good job, guys, we nailed it"? Because I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've read some bad essays in my day, but like this was, could have used another edit or two, I think.
Well, I mean, we're moving from having a professional producer in Norbert Putnam, old guard guy in Nashville, to having Jimmy and his buddy from the Coral Reefers. And it's not like Mike Utley's bad at arrangement. We know he could do arrangements. He did string arrangements a couple albums ago that were really good. He's pretty good at being a musical director. He's never produced an album before, so.
And I also think that like Jimmy, like as we've established on this, he has talents as a songwriter. They aren't really present on this album very much. But I think that like one aspect of that is that on this production on this Letterman show, he performs the closer of this album, "Distantly in Love," acoustically by himself. And it sounds so much better than it does on this album. I still don't think that song's great, but we will get to that later.
Who is it? Elliott Scheiner was the audio engineer. He was a professional. He should feel bad about this.
He should feel bad. This is not his best work.
Yeah, bad job, Elliott.
Let's move on to the first song that Jimmy actually wrote on this album. "I Used to Have Money One Time."
This is wholly forgettable for me. This is like AHAG Awards stuff for me.
I don't think this wins the. We have an award we give out on this show, Sam, called the Ain't He a Genius Award for the most forgettable, least impressionable song on the album.
Yeah,
I have a different song on this album that goes.
Well,
this is a song I actually remember. The other ones I am struggling to kind of pull to my memory, but this is a song I remember because it's terrible and also weirdly. I don't even. It's not humble bragging. I don't know what it was. Like he has the girls singing "Jimmy, Jimmy." Like it's just
it's kind of obnoxious. I do think that like I used to have like enough money to do things is more interesting than "I'm rich and my life rules." That like I've heard songs that had that kind of aim before that I thought were like not bad.
Jimmy wrote a spectacularly bad song like this on his very first album. about not having any money called There's Nothing Soft About Hard Times. And you could tell on that song that he'd never actually experienced hard times. And I can tell in this song that he's not actually experiencing any of the I used to have money one time sort of experiences that he's talking about.
Yeah, I will say I was kind of like, I think this song is a little bit better than I want it to be. And then the chorus in the background shifted to saying Jimmy used to have money one time. And I was like,
Yeah.
nope, I hate this song. I'm never going to like this song.
And the other thing
Agreed.
is just like, it's generically like a blues-ish song, but it's not blues.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of glad that like Jimmy isn't completely allergic to writing moodier music. His last album, Somewhere Over China, had a lot of moody music on it.
Fairly
We were
good
generally
too.
pretty positive
yeah.
on that, but this is quite a bit worse. I don't have anything more interesting to say about this. I think this song is like musically sometimes kind of interesting, mostly very dull.
I do think it is symptomatic of the album as a whole, though. Like, I think you both sort of talked about it as a midlife crisis kind of album, but it's a midlife crisis of a like rich white dude who's fine.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to like make it like divorce and stuff. Like, these are real substance abuse issues, like in his band and maybe personally, these are all serious issues. But I think to kind of echo what Kyle was saying, it's, this is not a sort of down and out kind of thing. It really is incredibly domesticated. It's, like, I have a little bit less money than I used to, seems to be the kind of and that isn't a really powerful story. And so the entire album kind of sits in the melancholic but not sort of entirely depressive. And I think I want depression. Like, I want, real like country and western style, like my life is horrible, and I don't really get that.
The song that this makes me think of is Mike Posner's I Took a Pill in Ibiza, which is like, I don't really like most of Mike Posner's music. This specific song I think is really interesting because it's about like being a washed up has-been who's taking random pills given to him by Avicii to be cool again.
Yeah,
and I think
guess
that's
so.
a much more interesting song.
Yeah.
This is kind of nothing.
Is this the one where also the chorus is like something like a cool
All
guy?
I know are sad songs, I think. Mike Posner also did that. He did You Think You're Cooler Than Me?
Because there's echoes of that on this album too. And I think there's a refrain specifically that has its words to that effect. Like Jimmy, or you can't tell an old man that he's cool or not cool or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
this
something like
song.
that.
That's this
Yeah.
song. He ain't cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Living
that-
It Up, the
that-
next song is definitely a midlife crisis song.
It's definitely a midlife crisis song.
It's also the song that I pegged is this is the moment where they definitely do not understand like the post-thriller world of production. That synth on the riff is genuinely the worst synth tone I have ever heard in my life.
It's pretty bad. This song has a lot of problems. It's the first use of a steel drum on the album.
It is, yep.
And it's like kind of weird. I kind of actually like how it echoes the synth, like some of the like backing synths on the chorus.
Oh, like the sawtooth wave.
Yeah, a little bit.
Bass
Like
part. Yeah, that one's fine.
I think that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
I think this is one of two like songs on the album that I would choose to listen to again, maybe. But I think I would listen to this less likely.
Yeah, this song, it's notable because it's the first one that Jimmy Buffett ever does a music video for.
He did a music video for this? I didn't.
Yeah, he
see
did.
that.
It was directed by father of the music video, Michael Nesmith, formerly of the Monkees, and erstwhile a great country rock career in the 70s. So, I mean, technically, like, there were like 3 or 4 songs that were done for a promotional Dunhill Records video in Living and Dying, or from that era, Living and like Come On Day was one of those. It's the first one to be a music video in like the modern like MTV sense. And what it shows is Buffett leaving home to go driving in a convertible. And there's 2 Buffetts. There's a Buffett in a mint green suit who is living the events of the video, and there's a Buffett in a white suit who is narrating the events of the video and constantly pointing the other guy and like laughing, like this poor fucker here over here. Right? And so the mint green Buffett, he leaves home to go driving in a convertible, and he goes to like this pop-up Hawaiian shirt shop that's run by famous footballer Joe Namath, and he cleans them out of Hawaiian shirts. Then he picks up a Playboy model, and he's driving around holding a pineapple in his hand. And then he gives the pineapple to a CHP officer on a motorcycle who decides not to pull him over for speeding and just drives away with the pineapple. And that's the video.
I mean, that sums up my midlife crisis pretty much. So,
yeah. I mean, like,
I don't think there's a better way to
like, with the chorus being like living it up and like the tone of the song, you expect like most of the lyrics to be sort of mocking it, like, oh, look at you living it up, and it's actually about how like things are not going hot. But the actual lyrics of the song, it sounds like things are going fine.
I think it's very much thematically a guy having a midlife crisis and pretending that he's living it up, because he's saying he's not giving up that time, right? But again, like, I don't think Jimmy's thinking very deeply about the song.
I don't think so.
And I think I think it does say something that generally some of the better written songs in the album are the ones that he covered from others. We can move on to one of those right now. California Promises by Steve Goodman. Now, I do have to say, this is the
frequent
last
Jimmy collaborator.
This is the last Steve Goodman song that he records before Steve Goodman's untimely 1984 death to leukemia. I think he does do one more co-write with Steve that he does on like an album that comes out after Steve dies. And I know he dedicates Last Mango in Paris to Steve, which I think is cruel. This album...
Well, we haven't gotten there yet. Maybe that album's listenable.
I think we're going down a dark path gambling with that. So I like the song. But it's a Steve song. I've got a soft spot for Steve.
I mean, I think this is pretty easily the best song on the album, and it still has like all of the same production problems and a steel drum in it for no reason.
Yeah. I would like to nominate Steve for a Secret Hero Award here for having the best song on the album, and also because I think he deserves it before he dies.
I think so.
Yeah. I
think that, like, among other things, like, this is the song that, like, maybe be like, oh, right, a lot of this song is going to be Jimmy missing his wife, which really, I think, like, coalesces on the B side of this album.
Yeah.
Which is, like, 90% missing his wife by volume. This song is, like, the first one that kind of, like, that's kind of what Jimmy saw in it, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the first 4 songs on this album have some semblance of, like, you can understand where Jimmy's coming from lyrically, or what he sees in the song that he's covering that fits in that thematic pattern established by the last 2 albums. From the next song on, that's going to change for the rest of his career, and for the worse, I would argue.
Again, it's fine. Let me rephrase that. It's fine relative to the rest of the album, but I would have to be digging pretty deep in the crates to pull this one out and being like, yeah, I'm going to slap that one on. Like,
yeah.
And again, to reiterate something I said before, I think the thing that is missing here, like with this album, it's not sad enough, right? Like, it's just kind of hovers into, like, it's maudlin, and then it's just kind of nothing. And I think if you're going to be sad, you should be sad. What I get here is sort of surface level, and so it doesn't have any emotional impact for me. I found it generally forgettable, and I still think the production sucks.
Yeah, this is the song that I feel like really could have used a harmonica solo from.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, otherwise it's a pretty short song. I think it's only 2 verses and then like a repeat.
Yeah, I don't think it needs I don't think it would need a long one, but just like, I think harmonica is a good song, a good instrument to add, like
to a Steve Goodman song,
emotion to it.
Well, I just want to say that shorter in this instance might be better, and so anything that draws the song and or the album out.
We'll get to that when we get to the shortest song on the album, which I don't think is very good.
Yeah.
But for now, we have to talk about, unfortunately, the longest song on the album.
The title track, yeah.
Yeah.
The secret 9th part member of the Big 8, one particular Harbour, the title track.
Yeah, so this is co-written. This is co-written with Bobby Holcomb, who is a Hawaiian-born Tahitian musician. So there is some semblance of legitimacy to some of the Tahitian being sung by the choir there. But
yeah, so this is we've talked before about Jimmy sometimes having like modes of a song that he'll get into. You named one the whimsical Jimsicle a couple of albums ago on Volcano.
Yep.
And I don't. We never really got around to like what other songs count as being in that sort of camp, but I think that like this is in a group with Volcano of what I referred to in my notes as big sing-along tropical pastiche.
Oh yeah, so this would be the mode that I referred to as Caribbean minstrelsy. Although this isn't really Caribbean, but I believe it's part of this is like, and the way I think about this is that like I don't think this song exists without Jimmy having written the actual title track Somewhere Over China on the last album, because I see a thread between that song and this song where he's really getting into the idea of going all the way back to exotica music. You know, the Arthur Lyman and the Martin Denny of the late 50s, early 60s, in the fact that he is blending for really no reason the Tahitian choir with a steel drum solo and you know, this whole armchair safari sort of a aspect to the song.
Yeah, and like I think that this really gets to the song also has like moments where the lyrics will get in, especially during the verses, will get into like a slightly more somber mood, and then it'll just throw all that out the window.
Yeah,
like a lot
goes
of
into that
like the stuff that Sam was saying about like this isn't sad enough.
Yeah,
but the song's also not really supposed to be sad.
And
I guess
again, much like what was that fucking song from Son of a Sailor? There's just like a reggae bridge for literally no reason.
Oh, that's not Manana,
reggae.
right?
Manana,
is that Manana?
Yep. Although he doesn't start it with saying "Let's reggae reefers" this time, at least,
which I think is a benefit. Yeah, I think that there's another song on this album that actually evokes Manana more than this one does. But yeah, I think that this is a bad song, and I really resent that we're going to hear it a lot on the live recordings we have to listen to later in the year.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that is my starting point, because when I sort of typed this, you know, the album title into my digital music player, I got a list of the songs rather than the album. And so I just kind of pressed play and was like going about my day. And I think I might have listened to the song 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different iterations, you know, in a kind of Grateful Dead live album kind of way. Like, oh, this is when it's a slight difference. You know, we have to have all of the recordings. I mean, I have all of Jimmy Buffett's mixtapes from all of his concerts, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's this one this song was tough, I have to admit.
Yeah, so I mean so Jimmy has what his fans call the Big 8, which are 8 songs that he plays at pretty much every concert. Now, one of those songs is a song from his first big album, or his first album from his like mainline career after he started and nobody bought his albums and he got dropped. And then he got picked up by a bigger label. And he put out this song called Why Don't We Get Drunk and Screw, which is this sort of like pastiche, but not really a good pastiche of all those like outlaw country songs that were happening in the early 70s that sort of masqueraded as generic love songs, but were actually talking about like having sex. He was just like, I'm just going to say this out in the open as a joke, but it's not really a joke because he wasn't good at them yet.
As his career progresses, he decides it's gauche to keep playing that song, and so he sort of slips that out of the Big 8 and slips one particular Harbour in.
So the less that the one song is played, the more this song gets played, and it eventually becomes one of his big concert staple songs. And I would assume part of that is also because, you know, he's got Robert Greenidge in the band, and like as much as, you know, we dislike the use of steel drums on Jimmy Buffett songs, we have to admit Robert Greenidge is a good steel drum player. If anyone knows the actually good song "Just the Two of Us" by Grover Washington Jr., and he does the steel drum solo on that.
I mean, like, one of the things that like we've learned is that like a lot of the people who go like play in the Coral Reefer band for Jimmy and then stick around for a long time, a lot of those people have some like very serious musical chops. Somehow they just kind of end up hanging out with Jimmy for the rest of their careers.
You got to have like a concert staple to utilize that kind of expertise, I guess, if you're going to have a steel drum player in the band.
Yeah, I think this song is grim. We should move along and flip the record.
It's time to flip the record, folks. Yeah, we will see you on side B.
Side B of this album starts with a cover of Arthur Neville's "Why You Want to Hurt My Heart."
Yeah, so the Neville brothers, I don't know if either of you guys are familiar. They're New Orleans.
Absolutely.
They're New Orleans R&B funk group, soul group. They're pretty good. This is not the last time Jimmy Buffett even references. I believe he name checks them in a song in a couple albums here. And their version of this song it's slower. It doesn't come out until next year, I don't think. It's slower and it's like more like normal New Orleans R&B with like a big brass section, a la like Alan Toussaint or something like that.
I think that could be. I could see that being really enjoyable. I really despise this recording. I think a pretty major part of it is that I think the conga part on this is really obnoxious.
Yeah, also, I mean, again, like the original wasn't a reggae arrangement, and I don't think this needed to be done in a reggae arrangement.
No, it's not good.
Yeah, the only good thing I could say about this is the shortest song on the album.
I think I would agree with that.
100%.
Yeah.
No notes. I mean, I have a lot of notes for the song, but no notes on the discussion.
Yeah.
I feel like the other note I want to say is that like this is like the first song that's like really really like, oh okay, this is the first song on the Jimmy misses his wife side of the album.
Yeah, that's true.
And also like
pretty egregious.
I feel like this one is like pretty bitter also. Like
we might not have known it at the time in '83, but obviously we know why him and his wife separate, and it's mainly because he's partying and doing drugs and generally not being a good co-parent. So
would you say the second half of the album has a little bit more like country feel in general? I mean, all of these songs are not a single genre. I think it's pretty fair to say.
Oh, this album is probably like his least consistent in terms of genre.
Yeah,
I would say it's his most eclectic.
Scattershot, but like I do agree that like the B side has a little bit more like country on it than the A side. Generally speaking, Jimmy's B sides tend to be better than his A sides. I don't know if I'd say that here, but I think that it's close. It's hard. Both sides are bad. So
I said this back on Volcano, but I cannot bear to think about which side might be quote unquote better than the other because they're both just so equally terrible. However, I do kind of like the next song.
Hold on, you like Honeydew?
I do a little bit. It's Jimmy crooning, and 3 albums in a row now he's done a crooning song. The only one he's written, so it's the worst by far, but I don't mind Jimmy crooning. The other part about it is that like there is, I think, a lyrical complexity to this. So the song is essentially the same joke as Why Don't We Get Drunk and Screw. I think it's a little more lyrically complex.
A little bit. I just don't think this song is very good. Like
no, I don't think it's a good song. I think it's a highlight of a very bad album, which is a very low bar.
Yeah, I think this on if this was on any other album, I think it would be the worst song on the album. On this one, it might be top half of the pack, but I don't really want to sift through it like that. It's less egregious than I think the other songs on the album.
It does.
Like my opinion on it.
It's got another one of those famous Jimmy mispronunciations in it because despite the fact that he professes to be a Francophile, he calls the garçon Garcon.
I kind of think that was a joke. I think that was on purpose.
Maybe, but I mean, just for context, I mean, we'll take Sam on a little history trip of the podcast. On his second album, he rhymed Chicago with Fargo and called it Chicargo. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, that tracks.
In Pencil Thin Mustache, he sings the phrase "Suave Errol Flynn" as "Suave Earl Flynn."
Suave, yeah.
Suave, yeah.
And on Chanson pour les petits enfants on Volcano, he referred to raccoons as rackins.
I didn't say rackins.
Oh, and then on Coconut Telegraph, he referred to mosquitoes as mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes is like a pretty, like, I feel like that's like a normal kind of like way to mispronounce something for a laugh. Like, I've heard a lot of people say mosquitoes before.
Maybe, but also that's on The Weather Is Here, Wish You Were Beautiful, which is very much a song that sounds like Jimmy's doing a joke, but it's very much a serious Jimmy song.
That's not a song I want to. You by no means have to hand it to The Weather Is Here, I Wish You Were Beautiful. That song's awful. I think that the Southernese line on this is bad. I think that
that was egregious. That
was egregious.
Yeah, I didn't even understand what was being said, honestly. Like I kind of had to go back. No, that would be unfair. I had to slightly listen to the song with a bit more intention because I did not go back and listen to it a second time, just to try to get a sense of what was being said.
That's
And then I
part
just
of-
kind of just let it go, man.
That's part of what I liked about the song, though, because again, like it's doing this thing where it's actually actively setting him in the South, like on the Gulf, rather than in the Caribbean or in the South Seas or
That's
in
true.
fucking Fantasyland, right?
I
I've
don't
always
think
said
you're really
I'm
getting
more
into this
more
one,
into
but-
Gulf Jimmy than Caribbean Jimmy. And so if you give me a reference to just like him being from the South and the actual place he's from, then I'm going to be more positive on it.
I don't know. I don't think it saves the song for me personally.
I think it's a very generous interpretation.
I think there are only 2 songs in this album that can be considered good songs, and they're both marred by very bad production. This is not one of those.
The production like hangs over the entire album. Like it's just like bad everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think, Sam, you mentioned this a little earlier. I think it is actually a little bit less terrible on the B-side for one reason or another. But like generally, I think that the production is just like it just plagues the whole album.
I will say, as much as I hate one particular Harbour, I think I hate the next song more.
Yeah. So this is the song that I think like evokes Mañana more to me, because like Mañana is a song that just kind of breaks down, and instead of writing the rest of the song, he just starts making references to like Star Trek and Kiss and stuff.
Right. There is that. Okay, I get that. Now that
and this
explained
feels
it.
like that a lot. Like instead of like writing the rest of the song, he just starts referencing like Gardner McKay for no reason.
Yeah, I clocked it as more of a pencil thin mustache thing, but yeah, I think both are accurate. This song, by the way, we are the people our parents warned us about, which it's not the only. It's one of I think 3 that are just Jimmy written.
Yeah, it's yes, there's 3 Jimmy written songs on this album. It's this song, the next song, and the closer. We Are the People Our Parents Warned Us About is not it's not good. I think that the central framing is like almost an interesting like song concept, and then Jimmy just decides to write it as like a typical like bad novelty track.
Yeah, because he's going back to like the Morris's Nightmare vein of, don't you wish you could just leave your 9-to-5 job and be carefree like me? I'm the person my parents didn't want me to be. Woo! Escapism. Right?
I almost don't think this is like Morris's Nightmare is like kind of about that, but it's also like about like a man's vacation being ruined by his wife,
this song
right?
is about that, but it's in that vein.
Yeah, it's similar. I think it's closer to Weather's Here, I Wish You Were Beautiful, actually, which is like, you know, it is in that vein of just like, I'm just going to be a dirtbag and leave the life behind to go be an asshole or whatever.
Again, I was trying to say in that vein so I could refrain from using the phrase vacation pornography in front of a former professor of mine. But here I am using the phrase.
It is what's going on. It is what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? It is vacation pornography. Less so, I think, than some of his other albums, actually. But this one definitely is like that.
But again, it's the content being, you know, sort of there's a veneer of anthemic rebelliousness or something, right? But the actual content is so thin and like pathetic and sad. I think that clash is, you know, besides the fact the song itself is not good, really kind of undoes it. It's trying to do some kind of like, you know, whatever 60s children, whatever, but it also has, again, no actual content. But I had a question though, because if this is in the context of a divorce that was in some sense inspired by his poor parenting, is the parenting thing somehow echoing through here? Is he working through something even more profound in this song that someone like me who doesn't know shit about this dude or any of this music might be missing? Is there a deeper thing?
No, because Jimmy just did 2 albums that were really self-reflective, and frankly they were better for it. But at this point,
they were also less popular.
I think part of the reason that Jimmy's going through a midlife crisis is, and the reason his albums are selling less, is because through those 2 albums, he realized that his audience doesn't actually care about him as an artist. They only care about the vibe he's creating through his music. And this is one of those songs where it's very much creating a vibe rather than actually having any content to it.
Yeah, I do also want to point out that it's actually important to note that Jimmy doesn't actually get divorced from his wife. He gets separate. They separate for a period of about 10 years, and then they get back together because Jimmy cleans up. Their marriage survives, and they were married up until his death. Yeah, but right now it's in the midst of really, like, they are not. It seems like they're not even really speaking to each other.
Yeah.
So,
well, on the plus side, that means she doesn't have to listen to his music at this point. So
Jimmy always referred to his wife Jane as his like most ardent critic too, because like there's multiple stories where Jimmy will write a song and Jane's the first person to say that's the worst song I've ever heard, and then he just records it anyway.
Yeah, that sounds like a thing.
Cheeseburger in Paradise, Volcano, all of these.
She could have done so much. Like, if Jimmy just listened to her more, she could have saved us so many bad songs. But unfortunately, Jimmy did not.
She should have been co-writing songs because, like, Kicking in Second Wind,
that's pretty good. Daydreaming, and they were good.
Yeah, Something So Feminine is okay.
It's clumsy, but Kicking in Second Wind is fun.
Yeah, so I mean, I wish she'd co-written more songs.
Yeah, let's move along. So the next song is 12 Volt Man. I think this is the least interesting song on the album, which actually kind of makes it one of the better ones also because it's too boring to be bad.
So in Parrothead lore, the like two hidden gems on this album are We Are the People Who Our Parents Warned Us About and 12 Volt Man.
That sounds like a Parrothead opinion, yeah.
Yeah. I always find it funny when we're like, this is forgettable. And they're like, this is the greatest song nobody's ever heard.
It really is a matter of perspective, and their perspective is wrong.
Yeah. There's a lot of flashes to like the same like sort of calypso flourishes on the keyboards that were like in Volcano that kind of marred it. The Ask for Some Palm Trees or Tales from the South Seas and I Just Might Turn Your Head, I think is like directly referencing what I just mentioned about Jimmy like recognizing that his fans only care about when he's singing about like good times on the beach.
It's maybe why it's brought up in the song, yeah. And maybe why Parrotheads like the song.
See, I don't think they get that that's like saying Jimmy feels estranged from his fans for that reason. I get that. That's the one part of the lyrics I do like, is because I do think that's Jimmy saying, my fans hate me. They don't actually care about me, myself. I think Jimmy's trying to work through that when he says that.
Yeah, but he's also like not trying to dwell on it too much because he's realized that his self-reflection does not sell records.
Yeah, I can get what you're saying about this being a forgetful song because I mean I don't actually remember the music. I mostly just remember the fact that the entire conceit of the song boils down to like a guy making margaritas on a beach.
Yeah. I just don't really have anything else to say about this one, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, to say that this song is forgettable, I mean, the other ones, I have a memory of them, and I will say, I listened to this album 20 minutes before we decided to chat, and I couldn't tell you anything about this song.
No, sometimes Jimmy will just write a song that is just like, it literally is almost like elevator music. Like, as soon as you stop listening to it, everything about it just exits your brain.
Exotica. It's part of the conceit. I don't want to
move
on. I don't want to move along, but we have to move along.
We have to. So this song, as we've talked about before on the show, is kind of the impetus for this podcast existing. So this is Jimmy's cover of Brown Eyed Girl.
Yeah. So we started this podcast, Sam, essentially because we heard this cover and we needed to understand how anyone could ever let this exist. And
like how this could happen.
I think the only answer we have here is that Jimmy went crazy.
Yeah, I think he's in the middle of a midlife crisis. We talked a lot about how like his Key West phase, like leading up to changes in latitudes, changes in attitude, is like in a lot of ways as enjoyable as it is because his producer Don Gant is like holding him back from falling off of a tropical ledge.
And I have to say, so Jimmy's like 36, 37 when he records this album. Little early for a midlife crisis, but also looking back on it, it's about a year or two off from his actual like middle of his life. Now that we know how old he was when he died.
Obviously, Jimmy was psychic. I think in actuality, like we have the situation where like he has a producer that is like very carefully curating how Jimmy acts, and then we have Norbert Putnam, who's a producer who is like sort of like helping Jimmy do his thing and not really trying to get in his way. And now Jimmy is his producer and doesn't really know how to empower himself to do things, but also doesn't know how to like stop himself from doing something nightmarish.
Yeah, and Mr. Utley is really not doing a good job at stopping Jimmy from doing incredibly destructive things for the world, like recording this song.
Ill-conceived covers of Brown Eyed Girl.
Yes, I mean, this is just like the work of a manic depressive man with an estranged wife, no connection to the only place that ever actually made him happy anymore, whose fans don't like him on a human level, and he can't write a happy song for shit because his life sucks so much right now. So his choice is either do this song with steel drums or drink himself to death in sadness and shame. And I'm not saying he should have done the other, but he definitely should not have recorded this song.
I think it's pretty bad.
I mean, here's my hot take. This is my hot take. Best song in the album.
I mean, it is Brown Eyed Girl. I'm not going to act like I'm too good for Brown Eyed Girl. Is the thing.
I want to be very clear. I don't like the song Brown Eyed Girl, and I don't like Van Morrison, and maybe that's also a hot take. But it also might be just the fact that I know the song, but it's kind of the only song I have any memory of on this album. And it's definitely not good. And I think everything that has been said is absolutely spot on. And yet, if you told me I had to play one song on this album or else, whatever, I don't know what the consequences would be, I would play Brown Eyed Girl.
I think that, like, weirdly, like, this recording is probably the best produced on the album.
Oh, 100% agree with that. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, like
I don't know why. It sounds better, though.
It does sound better. I do think like it has a lot of the same production problems, but it is the best produced on the album.
Things are balanced, so things are a little less muddled on this. I think that's part. I think part of that is probably because Jimmy knew that he wanted the riff to be done with a steel drum, and so he brings the steel drums up. Because as much as we've heard steel drums on the album, they've been kind of muddled in the background for most of their appearances.
Yeah,
but they are really front and center here. I mean, that's why we used it for the steel drum watch sting. They're really prominent. So I think that's the point where Jimmy realized like he can move the sliders up and down on the mixing board.
It would be interesting to know if they recorded this last, right? Because in that case, your thesis would be validated. Like, oh crap, these things and knobs do things. Maybe we should play with them.
I have a hard time believing that Jimmy has spent this long. He spent over a decade in music. He spent nearly a decade and a half in music. I have a hard time believing that he's gone this long without understanding how to use a mixing board, like the very basics. But at the same time, Jimmy is also doing a lot of drinking and drug use right now. So it's possible it just slipped his mind, man.
It's possible. I don't really have much else to say about this cover of Brown Eyed Girl. It's not good. It is mostly better than like a lot of the songs on the album.
Who would have?
I also think
guessed?
It's terrible, but it's brutal.
Yeah.
So it's pretty brutal.
Let's move on then to the closer, which is a song that, again, just like everything else on this album, it suffers from bad production, but
yeah,
I think this is probably the best song on the album.
I think it's probably Jimmy's best writing on the album.
Yeah, out of the ones he wrote, yes, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think this song is kind of a mess though, and it's because of like this point that Sam's been bringing up about like it's not sad enough. Here's my theory. I think it's the mandolin. I think the mandolin makes this recording feel like weirdly upbeat.
It could be. We've enjoyed the mandolin. What a shit! That's Josh Leo on mandolin this time.
Yeah, and it's not bad mandolin playing, but I think that like the song is worse for it. I also kind of think putting it on the album and making it the closer is a bad move because it's kind of a sad and pathetic song.
Yeah, it's definitely sad and pathetic. That's going to become a recurring theme for Jimmy throughout his separation. I mean, part of the reason why it's not sad enough, I think, is just like Jimmy's in that, like, I would assume that means that Jimmy's like, when he writes this, and because he performs, so the album is, I think, recorded in like May or June, and then it's released in September. He's performing this on Letterman in March. And I think he even mentions that he wrote it around the time of their 5th anniversary, which it would have been, I think, like November of 82. So it's probably one of the earlier songs he wrote for the album. I think when Jimmy wrote it, it was a time at which he was still sort of in like the denial stage of his separation, like early stages, and there was still some hope that he might make it up and they might not be separated. I think that's why it's not that sad, this one specifically.
It could be, but like the recording on Letterman sounds sadder to me, and I think it might just be because it's just him on guitar.
Yeah. Well, and also that time has passed since he wrote it. You know, it's been 5 months down the line.
That's true. I think that recording is superior, even though it's just him playing live on Letterman.
I agree. I agree. Jimmy doing songs solo, I think, has been sort of consistently better than some of his songs with the full group.
Yeah, I don't know.
I did notice there is a line, you know, one of the like choruses does say, "I can't help but be part of my own philosophies." And again, I think that is another like confessional line from Jimmy about how much he's leaning into his shtick.
Yeah, it's kind of rough for Jimmy because he's like at a really rough period where like it would be really nice to be able to be like a confessional like singer-songwriter.
But he just did 2 albums of that and nobody cared.
Yeah, because his fan base fucking doesn't want that. They want Party Jimmy.
Yeah.
Like they want Forever Tropical Party. And that's just not what's happening. It's a terribly tragic song. It doesn't sound like it. Like,
yeah, and that's the end of the album, man.
Here's basically my entire closing thoughts on this album. 1, the production is terrible, right? Even Jimmy's other like bad songs are like often at least listenable. The good songs on this album are not listenable. Secondly, this album's sad. Jimmy's sad. I'm sad.
Yeah, no,
this album does not inspire any joy in anyone whatsoever.
It's 100% what I said at the beginning. This is the midlife crisis album. That's what is indicative of everything on this album and everything around it. I have no better way of summing it up than midlife crisis. Just poor decision making.
But again, I think that, you know, it's definitely sad, but I would say more pathetic than sad. And so I want sad, and, you know, give me some like real like Townes Van Sant sadness or whatever, right? Like this is not that, and so it doesn't kind of do anything. I wonder, you know, as a thought experiment, if the mandolin replaced the steel drums in all songs, what that might be like. And then the other thing I kind of think about is the fact. Well, I mean, I feel badly that you're going to have to listen to the cover or the live versions of half of these songs again and again and again. But I bet they will be better than the album version because I think the live production, you know, even if it's one mic, is probably going to be better than what this was because the studio production is shocking.
Maybe it's not awful.
Let me ask you a question, Sam, about in terms of the sadness, because you mentioned replacing the steel drums. What about a steel guitar? There's a guy who plays steel guitar with Jimmy who played on the last album called Doyle Grisham, and he just absolute kick ass.
He's been on several of Jimmy's albums, sort of off and on. He's an unbelievably great steel guitar player. And his last album, 1982's Somewhere Over China, is the last time he's going to play with Jimmy until 2003, and that's tragic.
Yeah. I mean, I like a steel guitar, and I think it would help, but I do want to be clear. I don't think that, you know, some re-engineering or swapping some instruments there's no way to make this good, right? So if we sat down and just like swapped out everything and stripped it down to the bare bones and did an MTV unplugged version of it, I don't think it's good. However, I think a steel guitar would be preferable to the steel drum and or all of the other sort of nonsensical like calypso things that are happening. If it kind of was more straight country-ish, I think it could be a better version of what this is, which is still kind of a garbage fire.
So when we did Jimmy's like big album, Changes in Latitudes, Changes in Attitudes, I had this kind of weird dual experience with it where my partner was in the hospital the week we were doing it. I was stressed out of my mind and didn't really have like the mental capacity to be like thinking critically about it. And so my first couple of listens to it, I really liked the album. I thought it was really enjoyable, like shockingly enjoyable. And then my partner got out of the hospital and I was able to listen to it with like a calm, critical mind. And I felt like I had gone completely insane because it felt like I had listened to 2 different albums that were recorded and played exactly the same. And one of them was way better. And I just I I feel like that makes me understand that like a lot of Jimmy's music is not designed to be thought about, right? And like if you don't think about it, it's better. Which is a shame because I really like thinking about music critically.
Well, it's good that you have a podcast that is dedicated to thinking and talking about this then.
Yeah, right. But this album feels very different from that, right? Where it's like, I don't understand how anybody listens to any of this album and thinks it's even remotely listenable or like enjoyable. It's so bad. I think it's very easily Jimmy's worst album.
Sam, I know you have a time constraint here. You are free to go. But
I probably should run. Yeah, thank you.
Good to have you on the podcast. Thank you, Sam, for showing up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. It was, well, I will say it was a pleasure speaking with you both and a chore listening to what you made me listen to. And
we get that
as
a
I think
lot.
I wrote, as I said before, thank you for destroying my Spotify algorithm forever.
Yeah, sorry about the album.
Yeah, we really didn't.
Thanks for having me.
We really did not know it was going to be this bad.
It's pretty grim.
Yeah.
Thanks again, guys.
All right, see ya.
Okay.
See you around. So,
Ugh.
would you like to hear what headparrothead had to say about this?
Yeah, let's go straight into what headparrothead has to say. 'Cause I think I'm really gonna disagree with this one.
June 11th, 2000. Not since A1A has there been a Buffett album this good. It's amazing the inspiration you can get from a vacation in Tahiti. First you jab with a cattle prod with the electrifying cover of Rodney Crowell's Stars on the Water. Then you're treated to I Used to Have Money One Time, a song that makes you think that Jimmy's previous record was its inspiration. After that album takes a slight nosedive, but not a big one, with Livin' It Up. This song, like It's Midnight and I'm Not Famous Yet, just doesn't sound like a Jimmy should be doing it, but the rest of One Particular Harbour makes up for it.
That's why I like Living It Up.
The album is back on course with a cover of Steve Goodman's California Promises, and then it's Damn the Torpedoes with One Particular Harbour. This song is a major showstopper with its mix of Caribbean and the Pacific Rim. This album is riding high on a crescendo at this point and doesn't stop with the Art Neville tune Why You Wanna Hurt My Heart. The album starts to level off with Honeydew, a quaint little jazz number about being stood up for the night. I don't think headparrothead knows what that song is about. The next song...
I mean, it is kind of like that, but also I don't think so.
Is definitely raunchier than that. The next
think
song, We Are the People, is yet another anthem, and it seems that Jimmy found a much-needed home for the music from If I Could Just Get It on Paper. That might be the most egregious line in the review, but we'll see.
It's pretty bad. Well, let's see what he has to say about Brown Eyed Girl.
We Are the People actually dates to... Okay, no, you're right. He does say something worse later on. We Are the People actually dates back to 1977, at least when Jimmy was promoting Changes in Latitude. I don't think that's true at all. If you're lucky enough to find some old and rare live recordings, you can hear Jimmy tease the crowd with the early and raw work in progress that eventually became this masterpiece and another page from the life of Buffett. Again, I don't think this is true. Jimmy has admitted on many occasions that 12-Volt Man is one of his personal favorite songs to perform. Now, I do have to say, this is a song I believe he does record for, like, on his own for songs you don't know by heart. And I am interested in hearing that song after having heard the Letterman version of Distantly in Love. Because I do kind of want to hear what any of these songs sound like without that bad production value.
Basically anything that Jimmy's recorded with just him on guitar, I'm at least going to be interested to listen. He could do a version of Volcano that's just him on guitar, and I would be like, yeah, okay, I'll listen to it.
Maybe.
Because I think I would still not enjoy that song, but I think I would be interested to hear it. Because usually they're at least better when he does that.
Anyway, Brown Eyed Girl is much better than the original, and the original is near perfect.
Cool. Okay.
Finishing the...
I do not think the original version of Brown Eyed Girl is perfect.
Finishing the album with Distantly in Love is similar to the way Jimmy finishes live shows, with a song so meaningful it nearly makes your heart stop. This song and California Promises are open doors to the private life of the head parrot. Score, same as A1A, 6 of a possible 5 Coronas.
6 of 5?
Oh, same as A1A. Oh yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. What do you got in terms of contemporary reviews, Tom?
So I've got one review that I'm pretty sure is contemporary, and one review that is actually retrospective this time, unfortunately. I couldn't find their whole review, but in a retrospective book, Rolling Stone noted that their official publication gave the album 3 out of 5 stars. I couldn't find their official review. This retrospective included it in like a box with the rest of his output from the 1980s as, quote, music only a parrot head could love, which I think is accurate. So then I had what I believe, I'm pretty sure is a contemporary review from AllMusic by Ryan D. Langford Jr. That's unfortunately, I think, pretty positive. He mentions that like a lot of the songs that like the late 70s work and the early 80s work has not really been stuff that parrot heads like. And that in that, this is something of a comeback. Although he does say, unfortunately, that this is Buffett's best batch of songs since Son of a Sailor. Mellow ballads with soft rock production like Stars in the Waters, California Promises, and 12-Volt Man presented the former party animal as a thoughtful dreamer. There are also pleasant pieces like Distantly in Love and Why You Want to Hurt My Heart, which find Buffett in a confessional singer-songwriter mode. Of course, it wouldn't be a typical Jimmy Buffett album without a couple humorous songs. While I Used to Have Money One Time is a bit obnoxious honeydew and We're the People Our Parents Warned Us About, tell fun tales about being single and growing older. The album also has a bouncy version of Brown Eyed Girl. One particular Harbour may not qualify as classic Buffett, but it did prove he still had a thing or two to say after the party was over. It's also the type of album that's perfect for a weekend getaway at the beach. I think
that's too positive.
Is way too positive.
Yeah.
I what I wrote in my notes is that AllMusic considers the album a return to form, what I think can be described as journalistic malpractice. I really, I mean, like, I think that like a lot of albums from the 80s must have had, from like this period of the 80s, like post Thriller, must have had production. Because I don't understand how anybody listens to this and doesn't talk about how bad the production is.
Everybody's scrambling to try and do what Quincy Jones and Rod Temperton did for Thriller, and none of them are good at it unless you get Quincy Jones or Rod Temperton. A ton of albums in 1983 have this issue. A ton of albums in 1984 have this issue. It takes a minute.
And on this, you know, you don't have either of them. You have Jimmy and Mike. Like, it's it's pretty egregious.
Yeah, you have two drunk idiots one of whom is very, very depressed and separated from his wife.
Yeah, it's brutal. What's the boat drinks situation like on this album?
Boat drinks. I think I got boat drink fever. Waitress, I drink 6 more boat drinks. 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 Somebody sound the alarm.
Let's see. It's actually a wine album, if anything. So there's only 4 mentions. The first we get is the mention of beer joints in Stars on the Water. Now obviously Jimmy didn't write that song, but you know he recorded it. So we get a beer mention. Used to Have Money One Time, lots of women and wine. So mention of wine there. In Honeydew, there's a mention of drinking champagne. So that's a second wine. And then in We Are the People Our Parents Warned Us About is a mention of drinking a Cajun martini. So another cocktail. It's been a minute since we've gotten a cocktail. We've also never had a martini before. So this very could be, I don't know the contents of a Cajun martini and whether that would be a gin martini or a vodka martini. It could be our first vodka drink, I believe. Huh. So our running total, beer 14, wine 15, 9 mentions of rum, 7 cocktails, which are 1 Bloody Mary, 1 Margarita, 1 Havana, 2 daiquiris, 1 Purple Passion, 1 Cajun Martini, 5 whiskeys, 2 tequilas, 1 gin, and 1 scotch.
Obviously,
and then a couple honorable mentions as well. Honorable mention to the Voodoo Ladies Potion and Why You Want to Hurt My Heart, and honorable mention to the 12-volt man using a blender on the beach to presumably make a margarita. Yeah. That's it for boat drinks.
It's a really interesting collection of drinks. It's interesting to think about this as kind of a wine album because it is kind of
I don't think of any album when we talk about boat drinks. When I think about wine albums, beer albums, whiskey albums, it's 3 mentions minimum. I feel like makes it permeate the album because that's what we've had before. Like when we said A1A was a big wine album, it had 3 mentions of wine. Yeah. So I think of it having to be minimum 3. We haven't actually gotten 3 per a single album since, or 3 or more of a single since Son of a Sailor. It'll be interesting to see where that goes going forward because I do think Jimmy is starting to discuss alcohol less and less. I wonder how long it's going to be. The last album, Somewhere Over China, only had 2 mentions of alcohol, and that was the least since High Cumberland Jubilee's 0 among his studio albums. So I do kind of wonder when the next time we're going to get one that's actually a 0 is, if that's going to happen, whether we're going to get another 1 or 2. How's the steel drum watch this week, Tom?
He went to Jimmy, looking for steel drums bothering him so. Well, steel drum killed his lady, left him with only one question. Which way do I steer for my steel drums?
I mean, Jesus.
We're in full Steel Panic, aren't we?
Yeah, this is like the Steel Panic album. Like, there's been a couple of previous albums that have had steel drums, like, on, a track or 2, right? I think that it was, like, a little bit more, like, present on Coconut Telegraph, if I remember correctly.
The only time we've actually had actual steel drums is on Volcano before here.
Yeah, so this is like, I mean, they're all over this thing, right? But it's also, like, worth noting that, like, this album really strikes me in that I feel like Jimmy and the Coral Reefers, and specifically, I guess, Norbert Putnam, had gotten really good at sort of mixing a bunch of disparate instruments together from, like, that are traditionally used in different musical styles.
Yeah.
Like, this one has, like, these very 80s synth sounds and, like, traditional rock instruments and a gut string guitar and congas and an upright bass and a mandolin and saxophones and a steel drum, and they're all thrown together. And, like, on previous albums, like, there's been songs that had all of those, and sometimes it's felt kind of weird but not like a mess. This really feels more than ever like a bunch of musicians happen to be in the same room, and who gives a damn if the instruments fit together. And, like, I do think that's, like, indicative of the production problems on this album. But, like, mostly it's just, like, this album is such a weird Frankenstein mess. Like, musically, it's a problem.
Yeah, I like the concept of being a Frankenstein's monster of eclecticism, because that does make a lot of sense. Like I said, it's like the widest range of musical genres that Jimmy's ever actually employed in an album before, and he doesn't really do any of them particularly well.
It almost feels like the musical equivalent of, like, an Exquisite Corpse,
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Exquisite Corpse was a parlor game that became popular in France, in which you would have a piece of paper that was folded up, and then somebody would draw the top part of a person, and then you would fold it over with just the lines at the bottom, visible, and give that to the next person. They would draw the middle section, and then just the lines from the torso to the legs would be visible, and somebody else would draw the legs and feet. It was just like a bunch of people building sort of off each other to make something that was just kind of a bizarre, like, surreal mismatch. I guess, like, in a lot of ways, studio musicians do this, but they do this very well. And this album just feels like, it kind of just feels like there's no one behind the wheel often to, like, make them all fit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big detriment of not having a producer, and again, shame on the audio engineers for not helping to mix things correctly. Or, maybe Jimmy didn't pay you. I don't know. Just, like, it's your fucking job, though, man. Like,
yeah,
although,
like,
then again, like, Jimmy, I mean, he sang a song called It's My Job, and he's not paying attention to it here, is he? I don't know what it's going to look like. He produces the next album, I think, right? Who produces the next album? Jimmy Bowen, an actual record producer. Okay, well, hopefully we're going to have things be a little more balanced. You want to hear some Margarita scale scores?
Oh my God. Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, we've only got, I've only got 3 of them for you. So one particular Harbour, 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
You figure.
Yeah, you figure. That song's terrible, but it is, like, the secret member of the Big 8. It's gonna be there.
Yeah. Do you want to take a guess what the other 2 are that Matt hears in Margaritaville?
Off of this album?
Yeah.
12 Volt Man's gotta be one of them.
You're missing, think of the ones that would annoy you.
We Are the People Our Parents Warned Us About.
Yep, that got a 4.
And Brown Eyed Girl.
Which is a 6. Same as Coconut Telegraph. apparently played more often than Margaritaville, which is a 5.
The first time I started listening to one particular Harbour, the song, I thought that if I put it into my like ranking of like the big 8, I was like, oh, this probably goes up pretty high. And then I kept listening to it, and I was like, oh, I think it goes very low. I think I would rather listen to like Finn's. Like I would rather listen to most of the big 8 than this song again.
I think the only one I would put below it probably is Volcano. No Cheeseburger in Paradise as well.
Yeah, it's the album's
it's bad.
It's really terrible to listen to.
So here's some good news though, is that one particular Harbour is not a song that is like immediately a staple in Jimmy's career, right? And so when we get to Songs You Know by Heart, it's not on that album. In fact, there's nothing from the 80s on that album. So we're not going to have to come back to it right away.
Yeah. I'm also hoping that like the song is at least like somewhat more enjoyable when it's not paired with this terrible production. Like I feel like it's kind of stupid. It's kind of stupid to say like the song will sound better if it's made to sound better. The song is bad, right? And it's not going to be like significantly better if the production is okay. Like that doesn't suddenly make it like a good part of the big 8. This really is like, we've talked a lot about like feeling like we don't really understand parrot heads, what they like where they're at. This is the first one where I've really, really, really felt like I don't understand what people see in this album. I really don't.
Well, see, here's the thing, right? We're sitting here talking about like production value, right? The mix of the instruments, how muddy the production is. The historical context behind the fact that like clearly these people are struggling to remain relevant in a post-Thriller world. They were already struggling in a pre-Thriller world. Yeah. That's not relevant to the psyche of a parrot head at all. I don't know if things are going to be looking up next week. Next week we have Riddles in the Sand by Jimmy Buffett, 1984. Which begins with "Who's the Blonde Stranger," which is a song I've heard you tell me is a bad song.
I've heard it before. I don't think it's very good. I do just want to like. We talked a little bit about like Brown Eyed Girl being the impetus for this podcast. Do we feel like we're starting to understand Jimmy like historically? Like I feel like I understand what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I do definitely like. I can empathize with him having gone through these albums, in that like I pity his poor judgment at this time and what he's going through, because it really all is a facet of that. Like Jimmy's life is falling apart, and so his album falls apart, right?
Yeah,
and it's like what could have been between Coconut Telegraph and Somewhere Over China, like. Because you can hear some of the direction of that in some of these songs, and it just sounds bad because the production, and also because I think the songs are definitely less good.
The fact that the songs are not good should not go unstated or implied.
The idea that like Jimmy could have gone in that direction, it's the other big like what could have been moment for us. If like all of a sudden in the 1980s, Jimmy had just straight up turned like self-reflective singer-songwriter a la like a Leonard Cohen or something, because some people like the 80s is really harsh for a lot of people who had careers in the 60s and 70s in terms of moving to that sort of production and instrumentation. Some people ended up pivoting really well. Leonard Cohen is one of those people. His big album in 1988, I'm Your Man, is I think his most successful album. That thing is really synth heavy and it sounds great. So I can see Jimmy moving in that direction. I mean, he wouldn't be anywhere near Leonard Cohen's level, but it's another one of those things, like how we were talking about during the White Sport Coat and Living and Dying years, about like what could have been had Jimmy just stuck around to be just this like foundational outlaw country guy with a bit of like nautical flavor to it, or just the guy from like, A1A who still was really fresh in his mind about Key West and got to do the concept album at that point in time rather than a couple years down the road when it's a little stale.
A lot to be said. It's
tragic, frankly. We're at a tragic point in this
We
career.
are in a tragic point.
We always say
I
it's
feel
dismal. We always say it's rough, but this is tragic.
Yeah, grim, dire, things like that. This is tragic. It's gonna keep being tragic for at least a couple more years.
Yeah.
I think the thing that needs to be said that I think like really drives home how sort of rough this section of his career is that I'm really looking forward to getting to listen to songs you know by heart.
See, that's the thing, right? Like, this is where I'm at, where I'm thinking, like, a big part of this is Jimmy's just trying to struggle to figure out what to do. And in our document, I've sort of called this entire, like, period from Son of a Sailor up until Songs You Know by Heart, like the what the fuck do I do next period. Because Jimmy's trying out a lot of things, and most of them don't work. And after that album releases, because he releases Last Mango in Paris in 1985, that compilation album comes out like during the Christmas season of 1985, and it's immediately Jimmy's biggest album, right? That compilation. From Florida Days on is like him like getting back in the groove of doing Jimmy Buffett's thing, but he's doing it from the template of Songs You Know by Heart, which we'll talk about when we get to it. It's not really a good perspective of what Jimmy had done up to that point.
We're gonna have a lot to talk about with Songs You Know by Heart. It is upcoming, folks. In a few weeks, we're gonna cover that album, and I think that like one of the key things to think about is that like we talked a lot in sort of the early phases of this podcast about Jimmy like having an image that he was trying very hard to cultivate and project, and he has lost it. Right, the image is gone. Right, he still kind of has the image of like this like wild party guy. It's kind of clear that like he doesn't really want that image. Among other things, that image is kind of toxic in the 80s.
Now, in terms of the image question, right? I want you to know that the next album we're doing, Riddles in the Sand, its working title was Gulf and Western Music, which is what Jimmy's music is going to be referred to him by going forward. What the Parrotheads call his music.
It seems like this is a real like catalyst point where like everything's fallen apart. He's desperately sad. And like if Jimmy's going to make one thing work for him, it's going to be the music. He's going to try to make the music good. I'm a little bit worried about how he's going to try to make the music good. Just kind of because I feel like he's not necessarily exhibiting the best like judgment at this point in his life. I guess we'll see how things go.
Yeah, but for now, I've been Kyle.
I've been Tom.
And this has been Dischoreography, Wasting Away 2026's look at 1983's One Particular Harbour. We'll see you guys next week. Riddles in the Sand from 1984. Lay us out, Jimmy.
Wasting away again, away again. Wasting away again, away again. Wasting away again, away again. And Margarita the Bell. It's my own damn fault.